So, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great joy today to continue our regular webinars on different themes related to the ancient knowledge from India to support the life all over the world and being adopted and confirmed by the most recent modern scientific research also, which is done in the West, while these methodologies are applied. And today, we are happy that with us is Dr. Peter Swan, and he is a Maharishi Ayurveda consultant for more than 10 years and advising over more than 1,000 people about the healthy way of life. And he worked for many years under direct guidance of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in promoting Vedic organic agriculture projects on 4 continents. And Dr. Peter Swan was studying about organic agriculture and the Vedic organic agriculture with leading organic farmers and researchers in Europe, USA, and Latin America. And he developed a university curriculum for Maharishi Vedic organic agriculture and gardening, and which he has taught in over 30 countries since 2008, with excellent results about which he will tell us today during his presentation. And Dr. Peter Swan also researched the foundations of Vedic agriculture and discovered the structure of Rig Veda, how it is expressed in the plant nutrition cycle. So it is a great privilege that we have his with us and give us his knowledge. And I would like to ask our dear Ambassador of India in Croatia, Rajkumar Srivastavaji, His Excellency, to address our today's speaker.
Thank you, Acharya Yogacharya Niklits. Thank you again for this session that you are organizing regularly and bringing different stakeholders from all over the world who have so much contributed in spreading the wisdom and knowledge, but also bringing them together using technology. Reaching the distance. So today we have the pleasure of meeting virtually Mr. Peter Swan, and I'm very delighted to welcome you, Mr. Swan, to this session that we organize here for our friends in Croatia, and some people from outside also attend. Vedic agriculture, it's a very old topic, but new to some people who have not understood the deep depth of it. And I think from that point of view, your session will be very, very useful to those who will be attending now and those who will be attending later on through the recorded version. I myself am very curious in terms of your experience, because you have a vast experience for a long time working in this field. So I personally would be benefiting to listen to you. And as you know, this is a special month that we are celebrating all over the world and in India as the run-up to the Ayurveda Day, which this year will be on 23rd of October, on the Dhanvantari Day, that is the birthday of Lord Dhanvantari, to whom the Ayurveda is originated and to whom it is associated to. So this is that special month in which this particular webinar is also included as part of celebrating Ayurveda Day towards 23rd of October. So I welcome you and looking forward to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's a great joy to be with you all, Yoga Association members, and of course the Ambassador, His Excellency Ambassador Rajkumar Srivastava, and the thanks also to the Ministry of Ayush, who is always supporting all the efforts to improve health around the world through Ayurveda and Vedic agriculture. Now, the state of yoga, the state of union of individual intelligence, individual life with cosmic life, our cosmic aspect of our lives, is very much dependent on health, and therefore is closely linked with Ayurveda and agriculture, because from agriculture comes our food. So we are going to dive in now. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to move fast, but I think that from my experience, people generally find it quite easy to follow. Please note down any questions if you have any, and we'll answer them at the end. Unless there's something that you don't understand, then put your hand up, and someone please alert me if you see somebody's hand up. Okay, so I was asked to speak on Ayurveda and Vedic agriculture, and I'm also going to, now include gardening in that, of course, because majority of agriculture in the world is undertaken by small farmers, or we could even say gardeners. Now, we're going to start at the beginning. This is our universe where we live, and the timeline of the universe starts where the arrow is, with the Big Bang on the left, and it expands over the past 13.8 billion years. Each line that you see in that trumpet shape is the expanding universe. Each line is 1 billion years. We have a period of intense inflation, and then the stars start to form. Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago, quite recent. Cells were found on the Earth just a short while later. Land plants on the land are very, very recent. And mammals are just a couple of minutes ago. Now, if we look at the history of the Earth, from the formation of the Earth as a molten ball through about 4.6 billion years ago, then it was all rock and oceans. First bacteria, almost 4 billion years ago. First multicellular organisms, almost 2 billion years ago, algae, and then land plants. Plants start to colonize the land about 450 million years ago. So 1/10 of the history of the world. When the plants started to colonize the land, then soil started to be formed. There was no soil before, because soil is formed from the interaction of plants and soil organisms. The vegetation and the soil gradually covered the earth in the last 450 million years by the plants feeding the soil organisms nourishing the plants, and as the plants live and die, so the soil gets formed. So this is how the soil gets formed, and that took about 450 million years. But in the last 8,000 years, this little wedge at the end, 94% of our agricultural soils have been degraded, and 50% of woodlands have been destroyed, the majority since 1960. So where did the plants get their nutrients from? The plants get their nutrients from this symbiotic relationship benefiting both sides, the plants and the microbes in the soil. Plants give off root exudates, and all the mulch, the fallen leaves and flowers that fall onto the earth, this is all food for the soil microbes. And the soil microbes in turn give minerals back to the plants. So this is that age-old, eternal relationship of the soil, life, and plants. Now, what have we done in modern agriculture? Typically, the farmer plows the soil, and then harrows it, breaks it up and fertilizes and sows the seed and rolls it and then cultivates to kill the weeds and puts pesticide and cultivates again and puts pesticide and fertilizer and pesticide. On average, farmers drive over the field 8 to 12 times per crop. To get a crop, 8 to 12 times they drive over the field, and every time they drive over the field, it damages the soil. So what does industrial farming do to the field and the food? First, as soon as you plow, then soil erosion starts. What gets eroded? The topsoil, the most valuable part of the soil, the rich part of the soil, gets eroded. It gets eroded also by wind. Wind blows it away. And the fields that used to be dark brown have turned light yellow, light gray, as the rich topsoil has been used up, leaving the poor subsoil. In addition, what happens after plowing is crusting. The fine particles stick together like on a French baguette, you know, a French loaf of bread. And then they dry as a hard crust, and that prevents the seedlings from breaking through that crust. They get weak, they suffer. Hundreds of dollars per hectare are lost due to crusting per year, due to crusting worldwide. In addition, compaction by heavy equipment. You can see where the wheels of the heavy equipment have compressed the soil in this field. And this happens every year. Here we can see the difference between compacted soil on the right and non-compacted soil on the left. Compacted means that the gaps in the soil are pressed out, and then the air does not circulate, the water does not circulate, the roots can't grow nicely, and this causes, again, hundreds of dollars per hectare per year of loss from this compaction. Another thing that happens with our industrial agriculture is that soil organisms are starved when we don't return organic matter to the soil. You can see on this field, very little organic matter is left to feed the soil organisms during the winter, and therefore they starve. In addition to being destroyed by the plowing and by the fertilizer, and also a plow sole or plow pan, you can see this hard level which has been pressed by the plow in the middle of this photo. This forms what is called a plow sole or a plow pan, and it seals the earth so that the roots can't grow through it, very difficult. The water from the rain cannot penetrate it easily, and when it's dry weather, then the water which is deep in the earth cannot come up to feed the plants. So the plants are stuck with this shallow layer of soil above the plow sole in large parts of agriculture throughout the world. And this is a great loss to agriculture. Here again, we can see compacted soil and good soil with a good structure. And this good soil, the structure, comes about through the action of the soil organisms. They build that structure. They build a city in the soil where they live. And that city is essential for healthy crops. Also, industrial agriculture uses a lot of chemicals. Even the fertilizer, never mind the pesticides, the fertilizer reduces soil fertility because it kills the soil organisms that provide soil fertility. It reduces microbial life, organic matter, and humus. It pollutes the air, water, and soil. It stunts, it reduces plant growth, and it increases pests and diseases and increases greenhouse gases. So it's really not something that is holistically beneficial. As I said before, 94% of this world's agricultural soils have been degraded. That's all the yellow part. And the red part is where it's very degraded. Unfortunately, Croatia is included there. And of course, so is most of India, America, all over the place, where most of the world agricultural soils. Only the very light areas where not many people live, like Siberia and northern Canada, that is not affected. Okay? Now, what has happened with this loss of this degradation of the agricultural soils is a decline in nutrients, a decline in minerals, in vegetables, in dairy products, in all our food. Here you can see 1940 to 2002 in the UK. You can see magnesium on the left, about a 20% drop, calcium 30% drop, iron 35% drop, copper maybe 60% drop since 1940, since the start of industrial agriculture. This is a reduction in vitamins over just 7 years, from 2008 to 7 years later, 2015, and this is in Dutch hothouses. What we see is, on the left, vitamin C in cucumbers is 99% lost. Only 1% of the vitamin C is left in the cucumbers. Vitamin C in chicory, nothing left at all. Vitamin C in vitamins in broccoli, 84% gone. Vitamins in cauliflower, 64% gone. Now, how does this food impact our health? Of course, it's not useful. It provides us with carbohydrates, but not with those finer nutrients which support yoga, which support evolution and growth of higher consciousness. Instead of these nutrients, what do we get? Increased toxins. Pesticides and other toxins are increasing and increasing worldwide, and this is placing a greater strain on our health, our well-being. So this is what we have from industrial agriculture. And now I want to see, yes. So now we want to look at organic agriculture. Organic agriculture avoids toxins, poisons. It's a more holistic approach, which recognizes the soil biology, the ecology, and the environment, which is not done to any extent with industrial agriculture. The soil biology and how it works, I have alluded to this already, but now we get it in more detail. We all know that plants do photosynthesis. This tree here, exposed to the light of the sun, it does photosynthesis and produces carbohydrates. Now those carbohydrates, what is carbohydrate? It's liquid energy in the plant. It's sugars, sugar water. And that sugar water, 20 to 85% is shunted down to the roots to nourish the cells of the roots, but also 50% of that 20 to 85% is exuded from the tips of the roots. It is secreted. Exuded means let out from the roots into the soil. Why would a plant waste its carbohydrate, sugar water, which it has made with great effort? Why would it let it out into the soil? To feed the bacteria and fungi which are clustered around the tips of the roots. Those bacteria and fungi get their energy from the carbohydrates from the plants. When they get eaten, when the bacteria and fungi get eaten by slightly bigger microbes, then the minerals that are excess get made available to the plants right on the root where they are needed, at the time when they are needed. The plant controls this intelligent relationship by which carbohydrates it releases into the soil at what time of the year. It regulates that, and by that it regulates which minerals it gets in what quantities at what time of the year. And plants start to, big trees, for example, start to secrete or exude carbohydrates into the soil up to a month before they start to show leaves in spring. They start to exude those carbohydrates to feed the bacteria and fungi in order to get the minerals that they need for their spring growth. It's a very completely intelligent system. And here you can see that all the bacteria and the fungi, they are growing around the tip of the root. And this is the beautiful relationship, intelligent relationship between plants and microbes, which sustains all plants everywhere. So the plants, they produce antibiotics that, the bacteria produce antibiotics that repel pathogens. So when some disease-causing organism or some pest is coming to want to attack the root, then these bacteria and fungi protect the root. And they also digest organic matter and minerals and make the nutrients available to the plants. The plants, on the other hand, these compounds that the bacteria and fungi produce, they trigger resistance in the plant above and below ground, resistance to pests and diseases, and they increase the plant growth. So it's a completely intimate relationship. And the plants, as I've said, are in charge of this relationship. Here you can see a maize plant with this exudate coming off these air roots. So it's a large amount of exudate that the plants are giving off to feed their friends in the soil. It's not just a tiny little fairy tale I'm telling you about. Also, as I mentioned before, the soil organisms create the soil structure. The bacteria, the tiniest ones, stick the clay platelets together and organic matter together and form what are called microaggregates. Aggregates are stuck together things. So these act like the bricks in the soil. And then the fungi, they are long strands, microscopic, but strands. And they glue together and bind together the bricks and create the walls in the soil. And then nematodes and other microscopic organisms, they moving around in the soil create spaces like rooms. And the microarthropods, slightly bigger organisms, create hallways connecting all these spaces. And then the roots and the earthworms and the moles, they create bigger freeways in the soil. So all the organisms working together create that living soil which upholds healthy plant growth. And here we can see on the left a picture of a roadside in Australia where nothing grew for decades. In the middle, we can see the same picture which has been covered with compost. Now, compost contains all the bacteria and the fungi that are needed for the soil and some food for them. And this compost also contains some grass seeds. And a week later, on the right side, we see the same picture. Everything is covered, and this will be permanent. So after decades of nothing being able to grow, we now have permanent restoration of that land. And this shows the potential of this organic method, fundamental, just restoring the soil organisms in order to restore the fertility of the soil. So is it possible to farm without damaging the environment as industrial agriculture has done? The answer is yes. And I'm going to give you a quick example. This is Steve Groff. He is a farmer in Pennsylvania in the USA, and he's growing pumpkins, as you can see, without plowing. Now, how do you grow anything without plowing? It's called no-till agriculture. No-till. Till means to plow, to turn the soil. So no-till without plowing. Here you can see it's autumn, just about this time of the year. You can see the trees are all golden and brown. And this machine on the back of his tractor is called a direct seeder or a no-till seeder. And you can see that the field has not been plowed. The remains of the summer crop are still on the field. And what this no-till seeder does, this is full of seed here, this on the back, it drops the seed into very fine slits, which are cut in the earth by these steel discs. These steel discs here are like pizza knives. They cut into the earth without disturbing the earth. They just make a little slit in the earth. And then these pipes bring down the seed from here and put it into that slit. And these wheels behind close the slit. So very nice. You put the seed in the earth and you have not disturbed the soil. So this crop which he has sown, which is rye and vetch, it comes up in the autumn and it sits on the field through the winter, even through under snow. You know, rye, it grows under any conditions in winter, even under snow. And then in spring, it comes shooting up in March, April, depending on the weather. And here he is with a roller on the back of his tractor. He is rolling this rye and vetch mix, rolling it to make a mulch. A mulch is in this case, a nice thick cover of vegetation on the soil. Now, why would he destroy the rye crop? Because by creating this mulch, he creates a protection for the soil. Here he's rolling it, you can see. He doesn't cut it, he just rolls it flat. And the roller crimps it so that the rye cannot recover again. And into that, he sows his summer crop. And his summer crop in this case is pumpkins. Here comes a pumpkin baby, there's another pumpkin baby, and the pumpkin comes up through that rye mulch, and what you can see is that the rye mulch prevents the weeds from coming up. The weeds, which are the big problem for the farmer, this rye prevents that. Another thing the rye does is it fertilizes the soil, because all those bacteria and fungi, they are living in the soil and they are digesting this rye and vetch from underneath and providing nutrients to the pumpkins. And the third thing that this rye mulch does is it maintains the moisture in the soil. It prevents the moisture from evaporating. So, by covering the field with this rye mulch, what the farmer has done is provide fertility, moisture, and eliminated weeds. The pumpkins get ripe very happily. They are getting ripe on a nice bed of straw, which keeps them clean. They don't get splashed by the mud. And look at his beautiful pumpkin crop. which he takes to market without even washing it. So saving at every step of the way. He is saving work. This is the principle of least action. Now, this was in agriculture, but it's the same story in gardening. Different techniques, methods have been developed in agriculture, which are basically all founded on that system of creating a layer on top of the soil which prevents weeds and fertilizes the soil. The same has been done in gardening, and I'm going to give you an example. And this is from Charles Dowding in the United Kingdom, who is the leading, I would say, no-dig gardener. He has been developing these techniques for the last 40 years. And this is his beautiful garden, which he feeds about 20, 30 families with throughout the year. And you can see that all the vegetables that he's growing are growing in a weed-free garden. How does he keep it weed-free? What he does is he covers the whole garden in compost. A thin layer of compost, about 2 centimeters, is enough each year. That compost covers any weeds that could be there. The compost itself has no viable weed seeds in it. The weed seeds are killed in the composting process. So you are covering the soil in something that is the very best for plant growth. It is restoring the soil microbes, and it has no weed seeds in it. So he has no problem with weeds, and he has very fertile soil year after year. And this is how he started it. When he moved into this garden, because he has moved several times in his career over 30, 40 years, here he is in February. He started making these beds in January on a weedy pasture. There have been horses on this pasture, and he just covered the pasture with these beds with thick compost, okay, about 20 centimeters of compost. And now, 4 months later, in June, he is in full production. Isn't it beautiful? And every year, Charles does comparisons. He compares, for example, on the left side, he compares an undug bed with the same plants on the right side with a dug bed. So he digs up the bed on the right side and he doesn't dig the bed on the left side. Look at the difference in the crops. See how the cabbages, the carrots, everything is much more healthy. See how many more stones there are on the surface, on the right side, on the dug bed. And he compares the production, and here is the comparison of 5 years, 2013 to 17. On the dug bed, he got 487 kilos, and on the no-dig bed, he got 519 kilos. So doing less work, he got more production. And the labor, how much work? The labor in autumn was in 2017, he timed it. He dug for 3 hours on the digging side, and on the no-dig side, it was 40 minutes work, including filling the barrows to bring the compost here. So he has completely fertile soils, almost no weeds, and year by year improving crops. Very little problem from any sickness or pests. And this is by not digging and using compost. Now, question we want to know as yogis, is organic food more nutritious? Now, I have to say a word of warning. There are lots of so-called scientific studies saying that organic food is not more nutritious. And there are many studies also saying it is more nutritious. I have looked at all the ones that have come my way saying it's not more nutritious. And what I see is that inevitably that study is funded by the industry. And so we cannot take that very seriously at all. Here is new research coming out of Maharishi International University, Dr. John Fagan. He has got a very fancy new machine. We'll see a picture of it in a moment. There it is. It is an ultra-high performance liquid chromatography quadrupole time of flight mass spectrometer. And with this machine, he is able to see very fine nutrients that have not really been looked at before in terms of the difference between organic and non-organic foods. So all these things which none of us have never heard of, like decanoate derivative B and adenine and all these things, but just look at the main thing is the organic is always much higher, double, 3 times, 5 times as much in every case. Look at this. These don't even have names. They're all just numbers, different types of, and this is just in one type of potatoes that he had handy to test. But this, and this is beginning research, but this is what the type of thing that we can see coming out more. And to summarize the research, this is a summary. What we can see is that before industrial agriculture, we can say the nutrients were 100%, okay? Just say 100%. So when you ate 1 cabbage, you got 1 cabbage worth of nutrients. Now, in the UK, the red line is UK, the blue line is the United States. In the UK, by 1990, you had to eat 2 cabbages to get the same nutrients as your father would have got in 1940. In the United States, often it is 5 times as much you would have to eat of a cabbage, of apple, of milk, of anything. So all that has been lost. But, and that is in conventional food, okay? Conventional food produced by industrial agriculture. But, now here comes the big but for us yogis. Organic no-dig methods, including compost, are now showing 40% more of all the nutrients. And if you include wild plants in your diet, like weeds, then the nutrient levels are even higher. So all is not lost. We can get healthy, nutritious crops. Now, to go a little more deeply into it, plants produce primary and secondary metabolites. Metabolites means compounds that they produce by their metabolism. Primary metabolites are things like carbohydrates and proteins and oils. These are essential for the growth and development of the plant itself. And the secondary metabolites are made out of the primary metabolites. And they are specifically, they are more complex. They are for defense, to attract pollinators, for communication, essential oils, for flavor and for medicines. And they are produced only in specialized cells in the plants. Now, there are, just to give you an idea, there are 3 main groups of these secondary metabolites. There are terpenes, phenols, and nitrogen and sulfur containing compounds. Terpenes are like scents and flavors, essential oils, menthol, eucalyptus, ginger, this kind of stuff we know. Phenols are flavonoids, polyphenols, antioxidants. You see these talked about more and more these days. And then nitrogen and sulfur-containing compounds are things like cocaine, morphine, caffeine, omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids. These are things that we know are more medicinal. They are stronger, have a stronger effect on our health. Now, what is interesting is that organic foods are significantly higher in secondary metabolites, 12% higher. This is already in a few years ago, 2011, this study was done. But more recent research will be coming out. And what we see is that production of secondary metabolites, these more powerful metabolites that the plants can give us for our health, production of secondary metabolites is increased by compost, by enough nitrogen, but not too much, by mild stress, like when the bug or a herbivore like a deer or a rabbit nibbles on the plant, then it activates the disease fighting, the protection mechanisms of the plant, and that makes it more nutritious. Okay? A little bit of disease makes it more strong. Also, optimal water supply increases the production of secondary metabolites, and ultraviolet light, sunlight, moonlight. Secondary metabolite production is decreased by degraded soil of modern agriculture, chemical fertilizer, pesticides, glyphosate, Roundup, too much or not enough nitrogen or water, glass and most polythene sheeting. So greenhouses decrease the production of secondary metabolites. That's often why they taste sweeter than the ones grown outside, because the ones grown outside have to protect themselves from getting sunburnt, UV light from the sun. So they increase their secondary metabolite production, and the secondary metabolites often have a stronger flavor, like a bitter flavor. So they taste more bitter, more strong. And the ones grown in the greenhouse don't taste so strong, they taste sweeter. It doesn't mean they're bad, because in winter in Europe, you may have to accept that, something grown in a greenhouse may be much better for you than something grown in Kenya, and take a week to bring it here to the market by airplane and then stored for a long time, then maybe it's not as good as the one grown in the greenhouse. So now, Maharshi, in his revival of Vedic agriculture, he said that what does Vedic agriculture do to organic agriculture? It adds knowledge. Organic agriculture, we saw, is agriculture without poisons. Now, Vedic agriculture adds knowledge to organic agriculture, knowledge of the self, Atma, knowledge of Veda. So, Vedic agriculture agrees with natural law at every level, at the level of the unified source of life, Atma, the unified field of all the laws of nature, that is the field of consciousness, through transcending, through the practice, for example, of transcendental meditation, through Vedic knowledge, the next level up, that is the knowledge of Ayurveda, which we'll look at in a few minutes, the level of biology and chemistry, the soil knowledge of the soil food web, through the farming methods, what we've been looking at. How can I farm or garden without destroying the soil? Now, we've seen that that's possible. Through, on the level of the climate and the weather, the Vedic architecture, which reconnects the individual intelligence with the cosmic intelligence, and the cosmic influences through Jyotish and Vedic Yagya. Jyotish is Vedic astrology. When you know that this is the time for this, then you can synchronize your activity on the farm with the cosmic influences. And yagya, Vedic performances enliven specific laws of nature for example, now in agriculture, for the growth of the crop. Now we'll look at these. First of all, consciousness of the yogi or of the farmer yogi, agreeing with the culturing intelligence of natural law. This is the mind, The mind is like the ocean. It's got waves on the surface. That's our thinking level of the mind. And deep inside is the silent level of Atma. Now, when we practice meditation for transcending, the mind settles down. It settles down easily, comfortably, and enlivens that level of wholeness, of total natural law. And when we come out of the meditation, then that enlivened value of natural law comes with us into our activity and supports all our activity, whatever it is, for the farmer, for anybody. And just this thing of transcending has been shown by so much research. I just took one research study here, which shows fewer hospital admissions in all disease categories through the transcendental meditation technique. You can see intestinal complaints, hospital admissions for intestinal problems, about 50%. Nose, throat, and lung, in time of COVID, very important, is only about a quarter. Heart, less than a quarter. Genital and urinary injuries, tumors, bone and muscle problems, ill-defined condition, what many people suffer from. All mental disorders, nervous system disorders, metabolism disorders, infectious diseases, almost the same, Skin diseases, blood diseases, congenital disorders, all of these and other. So all of this reduced hospital admissions, reduced sickness, just due from the process of transcending. So this is the one aspect. That is accessing the inner silent level of our lives, the level of Atma. Now we know that the whole universe, the active level, is everything that is material is made of atoms, or molecules made of atoms. The atoms, in turn, are made of high energy particles like quarks and leptons. And these high energy particles have two aspects. One is that they act as particles, and the other is that they are waves in the underlying quantum field, waves of energy and information. Now, these waves of energy and information, which are fundamental to everything in the universe, this is what we call Veda, this natural law. And who has the knowledge of these waves of Veda is the Vedic Pundits. That is their tradition, to recite the Veda for specific purposes. Here we see an agriculture yagya in process in the United States, where in a greenhouse they are performing for the crops, a yagya, for the growth of the crops. And in Mahashi's system of agriculture, it is based on enlivening the total value of natural law in the 8 stages of growth in the life cycle of the plant. For example, when you plant the seed in the earth, that corresponds with the Prithvi, Prakriti. The 8 Prakritis, I hope we are all familiar with. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains to Arjuna that everything, all of life, is made of the 8 prakritis. They are earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intellect, and ego. Or in Sanskrit, Prithvi, Jal, Agni, Vayu, Akash, Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankar. And these correspond with the mandals 2 to 9 of Rig Veda. And they correspond to the 8 stages of the life cycle of the plant. Earth is when you plant the seeds in the earth. Water is when the seeds swell with the first rains or irrigation. Sprouting corresponds with fire, Agni. Branching corresponds with air, Vayu. Space corresponds with the full spread of the plant in space. Mind corresponds with flowering, intellect with fruiting, and ego with the new seed of the new crop. So at each stage, the Vedic recitations are performed for the crop to enliven the full value of natural law and ensure the complete transformation of that crop from the previous stage to the next stage. This is what we mean by adding knowledge to the agriculture. Knowledge of the self we looked at through transcending, knowledge of Veda through Vedic recitation. Now, we don't all have Vedic pundits to recite in our gardens and on our farms, but we can use Gandharva Ved, classical Vedic music to the ragas to play to our plants. And we prefer Maharshi Gandharva Veda music. It's available on YouTube a lot, because often different performers are including different aspects which are not pure Vedic music. So to be sure, we use the Maharshi Gandharva Veda ragas. And these ones, the rain raga and the celebration raga and raga Mishra Pilu and Dhani, these can be played at any time. Most of the ragas can only be played at certain times of the day, because they are related to those laws of nature which are predominating at that time of day. But these ragas you can play at any time. The rain raga is not only to bring rain, it balances the water element, okay, apa. It balances. So that is good anytime, and it sounds beautiful. All of them sound beautiful. And you can play these at any time of day or night to the crops, and they will appreciate it. These ragas below can be played at any time of day or night during their respective season. So Rag Basant and Hindola can be played in spring. Rag Deepak can be played in summer. In the rainy season now, autumn, Rag Megh and Mian Ki Malhar. And then in winter, Rag Bhairav. Okay, so this we can do for our plants in the meantime until we have some pundits in Croatia. Now, quantum physics has moved along nicely to match up with the Vedic science. And what we can see here is the manifestation of our universe from the field of unity at the bottom, Atma, to the manifest material universe at the top. And what we see is that unity, Atma, and then Buddhi becomes the three, Rishi, Devata, and Chandas. Rishi is the knower, the observer. That is consciousness, observing, knowing itself. Consciousness, Atma, knowing itself, creates within itself three aspects: the knower, the process of knowing, and the object of knowledge. All three are my own consciousness. Now, this is deep Vedic science, and it is beautifully corroborated in modern quantum physics, where Hilbert space corroborates or correlates with the Rishi value, operators with Devata, and quantum states with Chandas. Now, you don't have to remember any of this, but just as a matter of interest, these three then become the three doshas in Ayurveda: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These three doshas are the three fundamental governing principles of the physiology. Vata corresponds with gravity superfield, Pitta with gauge superfields, and Kapha with matter superfields. And from these come out, or rather with these come out, this is like an eternal bubbling on the of the emergence of unity into diversity. These are then the five Mahabhutas, which are bubbling at the same time as the three doshas. So now we can look at Ayurveda, this Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the three doshas. Just to summarize, what Maharshi, how he describes it is that the Vedic sounds with which the Pandits are reciting and which the musician is producing even in classical Gandharva Veda, classical Indian music, the Vedic sounds are the sounds of nature, from where unity of silence reverberates into diversity. So that is what we're seeing in this chart. So is Vedic food more nutritious? And the answer is yes. Initial research shows that, for example, in Maharshi Vedic organic cucumbers, much higher levels of iron, of vitamin C, of vitamin E, of calcium than conventional. And Maharshi Vedic organic honey, the conventional vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin B1 doesn't even register, but you have a good amount of these nutrients in the Vedic one, and also calcium and magnesium and phosphorus and zinc and manganese. So there is good initial research there. Now we can look at So the main point for Maharshi Vedic agriculture is that it balances and nourishes every aspect of life from its foundation in consciousness. I hope this is clear. The foundation in consciousness is Atma and is the Vedic sounds, which are in consciousness, right? This is the Samhita of the Veda here, below that line, and from there it nourishes Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the Mahabhutas, the 8 Prakritis, everything, the physiology. Now, farming is part of Ayurveda. There's Ayurveda for humans, there's Go Ayurveda for cows, Ashva Ayurveda for horses, Gaja Ayurveda for elephants, and Vriksha Ayurveda for plants. So when we look at the fundamentals of Ayurveda, then we have consciousness, Atma, which is the source of the organizing power of the entire universe. We have the doshas, these governing principles. The dhatus are the tissues, and they may be dhatus of a person or of a plant or of even the soil we can think of. And shrotas, the channels of the physiology undergoing transformation. Now, the plant also has shrotas, and the soil also has shrotas. And Agni is the power of transformation, the intelligence of transformation, digestion, metabolism in us, in the plants, in the soil. And the 8 Prakritis. All these things are universal, also Ojas, the finest product of digestion and metabolism. In us, it corresponds with the strength of immunity. And it is the chemical equivalent of bliss consciousness. So when we experience bliss deep in meditation, the body is enlivening Ojas. So No experience of bliss without ojas. Now, the Ayurvedic definition of health begins with the word samadosha. Samadosha means balance of the three doshas. And the second word is samagnish, a balance of Agni, the digestion principle. So the doshas are the governing principles, okay? Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Now, many of us probably know what they are, but I'm going to go through it quickly just in order to, for those who do not know it or are not so familiar with it. The three doshas are Vata is the movement principle. It is irregular, dry, light, cold, and rough. Pitta is the transformation, digestion principle. It is hot, sharp, and intense. Kapha is the structure or cohesion, pulling together principle. It is heavy, slow, cold, moist, and oily. When it's balanced, Vata is clear, enthusiastic, and artistic. When Pitta is balanced, it is joyful, clear intellect. Pitta is very much to do with intellect. It's discerning, discriminating, and it has good memory. Kapha, when it is balanced, is graceful, gentle, strong, and stable. When they are out of balance, Vata becomes constipated, anxious, suffers from insomnia, stiffness, pain, arthritis. It's irregular, it's changing. And if you get spaced out, that is too much Vata. Pitta, when it goes out of balance, we suffer from classic ulcers, burning, anger, irritability, overcritical, controlling, inflammatory conditions, anywhere, diarrhea, skin rashes. Kapha, when it's imbalanced, diabetes, overweight, congestion, depression, fear of letting go, excessive sleep. I'm sure everybody is wondering, how did my Vata go out? Usually because we sat too long at the computer. Sitting too long means not moving enough. So Vata gets blocked, it goes out of balance. And too much electronic stimulation, Vata goes out of balance. So what are the causes of imbalance of Vata? Irregularity, eating on the run, irregular meals, irregular sleep, irregular activity, eating on the run, spreading oneself too thin, taking on too much raw food, it aggravates Vata. Imbalanced Pitta is caused by overwork, by eating when you are upset or angry, overheating, like working out, and chili, fermented foods, sour foods. Okay? Kapha is, the imbalance of Kapha is caused by sedentary lifestyle, what we all have these days, too much sitting. Sedentary means sitting. Emotional eating, storing emotions, sugar, acid, fatty foods. This all causes imbalanced Kapha. How to balance them? Vata is balanced by regularity, by soothing, by salty, sour, and sweet tastes, and by basti, by elimination therapy. Pitta is balanced by cooling, bitter, sweet, and astringent tastes, and virechana, that is upward elimination in Ayurveda. And Kapha is balanced by stimulation, exercise, move, pungent, bitter, and astringent tastes. Now, imbalances in the plants can be treated in the same way that we treat our imbalance. For example, a vata imbalance in a plant will mean the plant will become thin and crooked and dry, and it needs nourishment, soothing, warming. For example, oil or ghee is prescribed in the Vriksha Ayurveda texts. Oil or ghee. And that will settle the vata. Then pitta is when it gets too hot and burnt, it needs cooling. Milk or ghee, very good for those plants, for that soil suffering from too much heat and too much burning quality. Kapha means that it needs reducing therapy. It's got too much nutrients. So you reduce the nitrogen, for example, and reduce the water a bit, and then it can recover itself from a kapha imbalance. The 3 doshas, I may just give an example here. In my garden outside, I have some trees, walnut trees, which I had planted, and the one tree got cracks in it, and it was leaking. And so I was giving it milk to strengthen it, and it kind of recovered. It improved. But then it started to drop its sap from the branch up above, just dropping, dripping sap. It was not damaged, it just was dripping. It got some opening in the branch and it was dripping. So then by that time I had started to learn about this and to get insight into Ayurveda use in gardening and agriculture. So I said, okay, this is a classic kapha imbalance, right? Excess sap dripping without a wound. So I said, all right, let's give it some kapha tea. So I made a kapha tea and made it thin and poured it around the roots. And in a week or so, it was not dripping anymore. So the kapha imbalance was restored. It's just an example. Now, we can also see the 3 doshas operating in the seasons and the weather. For example, when it's cold and wet and cloudy and more calm, that is kapha, more kapha weather. When it's warm or hot and humid and sunny, and maybe warm breeze, maybe electric storm, that is pitta weather, pitta season. And when it's cold and dry and sunny and changing, dry, cold, changing, windy, stormy, that is vata, okay, vata weather. So that influences as well. And when it is warm and dry and sunny and less windy, that is healthy climate, according to Ayurveda. Now, how do we balance vata, pitta, and kapha in the soil? In a kapha soil will be wet and heavy. A clay soil is a kapha soil. A pitta soil is an acid or sharp soil. And a vata soil is dry, light, sandy, leached out soil. You know, like on the beach. That is a vata soil. It doesn't hold much water. Now, how to balance these soils? Add organic matter. This is agreed by all experts all around the world, no matter which system of agriculture they belong to. You add organic matter, compost, mulches like straw, hay, leaves, wood chips, or biochar to no matter what the problem is in your soil, and it will balance it. In addition, a kapha soil, we can raise the bed a bit if it's too wet, so we can drain excess water, make raised beds. A pitta soil, we can add more green bacterial food because the fungi are acid. They produce acid exudates. So to balance that, we can add more green bacterial food. And the Vata soil, we can add organic matter and biochar. It is said in the Ayurvedic texts that the soil that smells sweet is the best. You know, when you were young, maybe you used to smell the soil and even taste the soil. And that sweet smell of the soil, it produces vital, nourishing crops, food for higher consciousness. And the source of effective plant nutrition is in the gap around the root tip, where the microbes provide solubilized minerals to the plant. Here's the plant, this is its root. Now we're looking through the microscope here. We see the tip of the root with the bacteria here, and these are the fungal threads going out here. That is the key point for the nutrition of the plant, and it is this gap around the root here that where the doshas really need to be balanced, and that is the vata, the air in circulation around here, the pitta, the transformation by the microbiome in the soil, and the kapha, the ideal moisture content in the gap here. This is balanced, nutritious, nourishing soil for the plants. If it's all full of water, that's not good for your pumpkins or your whatever you're growing, tomatoes. It needs to be moist, but not too wet and not too dry. So some ways we can balance the three doshas in the soil and for the plants are through Vata Pitta Kapha teas, Vata Pitta Kapha composts and compost teas. For example, in the courses that I teach, we give lists and describe which plants, which are weeds mostly growing in our gardens, on our farms, increase vata, which increase pitta, which increase kapha. So if I have a kapha problem in my area, then I can make a vata pitta compost with more vata pitta plants, you see? And that will balance that kapha situation in my farm or my garden. We can use things like fermented plant juices, also with Vata Pitta Kapha preference. We can use essential oils. Essential oils are especially useful for infections, bacterial and fungal infections. For example, oregano oil is great for all kinds of fungal infections and bacterial infections for us and for the plants. And mulches are essential. Mulch is often the most important thing you can do in your garden, apart from just growing the crops, is mulching your crops, because it maintains the soil organisms and it maintains the moisture in the soil, and it increases fertility. So the main point for the doshas here is that balancing the doshas here balances the foundation of farming and gardening so that all other levels can become balanced. If you don't balance Vata Pitta Kapha, we know from our own lives, then you are not balancing the basis for whatever surface problem you have in your life. That's why you go and see the Vaidya, and the Vaidya tells you reduce Vata, go to bed early, eat regularly, okay? Don't eat so much salad. And then you balance Vata, and all those other problems which you had, which was like, I can't sleep at night and I've got joint pains, these go less and often disappear just by balancing Vata, because Vata is deeper. How is the time, please? Are we going too long?
Yes, dear Peter, it's so interesting that we a little crossed the time, but it's so interesting. We would like to hear your whole presentation. Yes, we can still proceed.
Okay, there's not much left. Agni,
Yes.
thank you. Agni is the digestive fire, and it's said in Charak, On Agni depends lifespan, complexion, strength, health, enthusiasm, solid build, luster, immunity, energy, heat. Everything depends on Agni. Now, Agni is the power of transformation from unity to diversity. This is Agni. In us, Agni transforms the food that we eat into the 7 dhatus. It transforms the food and produces ojas, which is the finest product of digestion, and also ama gets produced if we are not careful. That is uncooked waste, ama. So we want to produce less ama and more ojas, more bliss. Now, this depends on our digestive capacity, and a lot of that takes place in the large intestine, where the nutrients, where it gets digested and nutrients get absorbed. And this is where the digestive microbiome lives. We all know about probiotics now and prebiotics. This microbiome, these organisms, microbes in our gut, in our colon, they aid digestion and synthesize vitamins and detoxify and defend us against pathogens and help program the immune system. They are part of us. They are not something extra. Now, our intestines are the same almost as the root of the plant. It's just one's looking inwards, the other's looking outwards. So in us, the digestion takes place in the intestine, whereas in the plant, the digestion takes place in the soil. But basically, it's the same thing. And so these organisms in the soil get more complex as the plants get more sophisticated on the surface. You see? Very poor soil can only grow small primary kind of plants. The big trees need a much more sophisticated soil food web in the soil. Yeah, the two go together. And the Agni and the Ama, Agni, and the Ama is the waste product, sticky, collecting, remaining in the body. If digestion is incomplete, it gives rise to Ama, which is sticky, blocks the subtle channels of the body, disturbs digestion, and holds or localizes imbalanced doshas, which then may give rise to disease. Now, in the soil, when soil or compost is not well aerated, for example, due to compaction or excess water, these conditions select for anaerobic organisms, and they are pathogenic, and they produce compounds which are toxic to plants. So this is very similar. You know, the Agni is disturbed, and then you get the toxins being produced. So how to balance the Agni? In us, if our digestion is weak, we give it food that is easy to digest. We take khichdi. We don't take beefsteak. If the nutrients cycling for the plant is weak, we add mulch or compost. We increase the digestive capacity of the soil around the plant. So there we are adding the mulch for the plant. And how do they get disturbed? When in us, it happens when we eat without feeling hunger sensation. This is very clear in the classic Ayurvedic texts, is that you should not eat unless you feel hungry, not appetite, hunger. It comes from eating too much refined food. It damages Agni. Eating too much or drinking too much water during the meal, or not taking enough fiber, or taking antibiotics. It destroys Agni. In the soil, not enough organic matter, then the soil organisms die off. Compaction of the soil, not enough water, too much water. Chemical fertilizer kills the soil organisms. Chemical pesticides, same as antibiotics. Both of these create anaerobic conditions that where beneficial organisms are reduced, pathogens are favored, and toxins are produced. So that's how it happens. Hippocrates said, all disease starts in the gut. And therefore, we should recognize that health of the gut starts in the earth, in the same way that our gut works, our stomach, our digestive system, the same way it works in the earth, and best is in your garden. Then you can get fresh, good food. Now I'm going to, so Agni, when our Agni is balanced, it gives healthy life, free from disease and disorders. And in the garden, when we balance Agni by means of food for the microbiome, air and water. We can talk about shrotas in the soil, and the soil is a city. It's a city where all those organisms have their levels, and they have the channels for irrigation and food transportation and air conditioning, and we should not disturb it. We just feed it. And so the main Vedic food should be food for higher consciousness. It should be pure and fresh and fully ripened and grown in accord with all the laws of nature, local and cosmic. And what we are experiencing now is a huge transformation in agriculture, where more and more farmers are realizing that industrial farming is not delivering what we need. It is destroying the soil, and it is producing food which is not nourishing to the people. And that's why more and more people are looking for organic food, natural food. And so all of this story which I've been telling you about agriculture, I'm sure you have noticed that it all operates according to the principle of least action, Nishkam Karma Yoga in Bhagavad Gita. The principle of least action in quantum physics and in modern science is held to be the most fundamental law of nature. All natural law functions according to the principle of least action. And we see that as we do less in agriculture and gardening and use more fine technologies like Vedic sound and transcending pure consciousness, then we get better results. So all of this is what I have from Maharshiji, and I'm very happy to offer it to you today. If there are any questions, I'll be very happy to take them. Jai Gurudev.
Dear Peter, we can just appreciate so much your lecture and say just fantastic. And you gave such a beautiful explanation how the nature of life is unity and the life is unity, so that we don't relate life only to us, but the planet Earth is the life itself. It is the life being, the life organisms, and the plants as a life beings. And we should relate to the life as the life we relate to us, to the other, everything what is surrounding us, and take care about everything with love and appreciation. And then this is giving us, then the planet Earth is giving us back 100 times more, supporting us in our evolution. So the love is the main ingredient for nourishing the life, and relation to be with that appreciation. So the farmer related with his farm with the bondage of love, And that's why it's important that the farmer has that state of consciousness, which is naturally expanded and harmonious and blissful, and spreading that influence to his farm. And for that, it's important that he practice yoga and transcendental meditation, transcending process to support from that so the source, to support from the source the life of all his surrounding. In that sense, I would like to extend a kind of invitation to all, also the ministries of agriculture, to support initiatives creating such a farms, Vedic organic agriculture, and allowing people to work on these fields, and then practicing yoga and meditation, they can create peace. At the same time, not only peace and beautiful life conditions for their region, but also to influence the peace in the world, what is most important. So thank you very much. And I would like to invite His Excellency Raj Kumar Srivastava, Ambassador of India in Croatia, to give us some concluding remarks. But before that, if there is maybe just one or two questions, because we have not much time to...
I took too long, sorry.
No, it's beautiful. It was so fantastic. Great knowledge you gave, and I think you inspired and convinced many, many people to shift to organic agriculture. And I think they are so eager to buy some land somewhere or whatever and start making their own garden. And we will be very happy welcoming you to Croatia again and organizing a seminar for you to teach the people.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. It was a very knowledge addition interaction with you. I think I liked your first slide very much, because we should always understand the overall perspective of the human civilization. The last 2 minutes have been the real development that we see, and we think that we are huge importance kind of ego in this universe, which is 13.5 billion year old. So I think this is important to understand that the role we play as individual, which is part of this universe, and in the connection between nature, soil, human beings, Atma, soul, I think that kind of perspective allows us to look much more in a unified manner. And there, I think we find solutions. Soil is a big issue, but the way you explained very much. But I have a question that if it is so easy to understand with all the data, why this doesn't happen? Is there something that we can do, or we just have to also follow the Vedic principle that you don't need to change the world, you need to change yourself?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Unfortunately, it is more that around the world, farmers who are developing and using these more holistic, organic, natural systems are training their colleagues. But it's hardly penetrated into the universities, because the universities are basically, supported by industry. So industry is not interested in this. And I can give you a short story. I gave a talk once at the University, Agriculture University in Vienna. And I explained this to them about no-till agriculture. And afterwards, the professor thanked me and he said, "Do you remember," to the audience, "last week we had 4 experts on no-till agriculture came from Germany and addressed us 2 weeks ago. And they told us that it's not possible to do organic agriculture no-till. And here Dr. Swan has shown us that there are farmers all over the place doing it." So it's a matter of our training, our education, what my father did, what the county agent tells me, and there's a huge invested power of industry in agriculture, as in every area. So when the farmer gets ready, he finds out and he starts to use it. We have to raise collective consciousness, and then more farmers get ready.
I think that's a story of many industries. It's not only the agriculture. It's when we talk about Ayurveda, the healthcare industry also comes in the picture.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very well known. We talk about all industries with the agenda, but ultimately the Vedic principle is also that if you can change yourself and then slowly change the surroundings by creating awareness, that's what the task given to you as a human soul. And more you do it, bigger challenges come to you. It depends upon your capacities. So I'm sure that you have larger capacities than many others because you are doing this yeoman's job of passing this to much bigger ecosystem. Thank you so much.
And congratulations to Indian government under Prime Minister Modi ji, who is doing now a great work in this respect, spreading the knowledge of Ayurveda and Vedic science and Vedic tradition around the world.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, everybody, for participating in this fantastic webinar and beautiful knowledge that we gained. And I am inviting you for our next webinar, which will be soon from the celebrating the International Ayurveda Day in that context. And we will send you announcement for the lecture. So thank you all. And thank you, Peter G. So it was a great blessing and to hear you. And I'm very happy to, we invite you to Croatia. And
I would be happy to come and share the knowledge with you.
Yes, and thank you very much for because you were sharing with us your love for that area and for the plants and for the life. And this is the most precious what we got during that lecture, because it was radiating from you.
Thank you for seeing that.
You. Yes.
Bye-bye, Jai Gurudev.
Bye.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.